policy of pressure through diplomatic and economic sanctions. Let's bring in former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations now and Fox News contributor John Bolton. John, thank you so much, Ambassador, for speaking with us. President Trump's year in foreign policy has been incredibly intense, from North Korea and getting China on board with sanctions to the successful defeat of ISIS. But today, there was a major hiccup in the success on sanctions as China has done it again, apparently. And I want to read the president's tweet some short time ago. He wrote this: "Caught red-handed. Very disappointed that China is allowing oil to go into North Korea. There will never be a friendly solution to the North Korea problem if this continues to happen." This is not the first time China hasn't kept up their end of the bargain on sanctions. How do we respond?
Well, they haven't kept up their end of their own policy for 25 years.
Right.
They've been saying that entire time, we don't want to see a North Korean nuclear weapon. But they have consistently failed to do what they have the unique capability of doing, and that's in either bending the regime in North Korea to their will or helping us get rid of it and reunite the Korean Peninsula. I think President Trump is probably justifiably more disappointed in Xi Jinping in China than any other disappointment in his first year in office. He tried hard, I have to say, more optimistically than I would have, to give China a chance to put its actions where its mouth has been all these years, and this is the response he gets. It is, as you say, there's nothing new in this, unfortunately. This is what they do. They pretend to go along with sanctions. They try and palliate the United States. They try and calm us down until our short attention span takes us somewhere else. They go right back to business as usual. And that's why now the bill is coming due after 25 years of failed American policy on North Korea, and we're faced with some extraordinarily unattractive choices. And I think the president just made that point in the tweet as clearly as you can make it. There won't be a friendly ending unless China acts, and acts decisively in a way they haven't done yet. Yeah,
and I mean, we know that President Trump and his Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, have differed on many issues when it comes to diplomacy and North Korea. And China really was sticking through that deal on sanctions by shutting down the banks, shutting down the oil. It was all really on China. Now with China pulling out, it begs the question whether or not Tillerson will continue with his sentiment that he believes that it's possible to begin talks with Pyongyang in 2018, because if you don't stick to sanctions, talks aren't going to work.
Talks aren't going to work whether we have sanctions or not. This is the most disappointing thing, I think, about the State Department in the past year and this op-ed. We've negotiated with North Korea for 25 years, and for 25 years they've stuck it to us over and over again. The State Department's reaction is, let's go for year 26. I think the president has basically had it there. I think there is this one diplomatic play left with China that they are in the process yet again of squandering. And I think really what we should be doing is bringing people to the realization we have a very tough choice. Either we leave North Korea with nuclear weapons, which, by the way, they can sell to anybody with hard currency, or we have to look at military options. It's not pleasant either way. There's no doubt about it. But you need to have an honest debate with the American people and not say, well, you know, if we could just get North Korea back to the negotiating table. It hasn't worked before. It won't work now.
Yes, and China has just proven we can't trust them either to get it done. I want to get back to the op-ed piece because I'm wondering what you think of it, first of all, and whether you think this maybe puts some speculation to rest that Rex Tillerson isn't going anywhere, because, as you know, there's been a tumultuous back and forth between the Secretary of State and the President, House aides at one point even wanting Tillerson to resign. And then there was reports that he was going to do so in January after a slew of reasons, one of which he called the President an expletive moron. But apparently these two seem to be making up, or are they? I mean, is this Tillerson trying to save his job?
Well, I read the op-ed very carefully, and I must say, to me, it had the ring of a valedictory address, sort of saying, here's what I did, and by the way, I'm out of here after the first of the year. Honestly, I feel for Secretary Tillerson that he would have been better advised had he followed the advice of his fellow Texan Jim Baker back at the beginning of the Bush 41 administration. Baker was actually quoted publicly at the time as saying that he was going to be President Bush's personal envoy to the State Department and not the other way around. And I think rather than carrying the State Department's message to the White House, it would have been more productive and we would have had more successes if that advice had been followed.
Yeah, and that's the question, because speaking of following advice, the president follows the advice of his military advisors very, very closely. You wonder, though, if he follows the advice of Rex Tillerson, because there have been many disagreements between the two about exactly what it is that they want to do moving forward when it comes to diplomatic solutions in certain areas, North Korea being one of them. And after China pulling out of sanctions today, you have to wonder what the president's thinking.
Yeah, I don't think the disagreements with Secretary Tillerson have come because he's not a general. I think anybody who's been the CEO of a major corporation knows how to run large enterprises. I think it's unfortunately because so much of the approach that the secretary's taken has been the kind of reflection of the State Department's innate culture. And I think that is not a culture that's particularly hospitable to the Trump worldview. So that goes back to my point about Jim Baker. If you're the White House envoy to the State Department, you're going to have a different role than if you're carrying the State Department message back to the White House. And by the way, it would make the State Department a more important body in the functioning of foreign affairs if they weren't excluded.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we'll have to see. I mean, it seems that President Trump is optimistic that these things will work out, but certainly has not been shy to say that he means business with North Korea, and if it takes military action, we will do so. But thank you very much, Ambassador John Bolton. As always, great to see you.
Glad to be with you.